Welcome, NutritionRadio.org listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry, a university nutrition professor of over 20 years and podcast host of long-running shows like Iron Radio. Come on in. Lecture time.
Hey, everybody. Well, because this one is pre-recorded, like the last Experiments versus Experience, we're going to go back in time and we're going to explore something that Rob Fortney and I recorded many years ago on last-minute tweaks when someone wants to change their physique with nutritional modulations. How do you do that? Keep in mind that a lot of this is experiential. There has been a little bit of scientific investigation into manipulating water or carbohydrate loading and that kind of thing. But let's go check out what Rob and I were talking about years ago, because, of course, a lot of this still holds true. For those of you looking for academic lectures, and I know not a lot of you do, which is why I'm exploring these other things, just kind of following the data, this is something that's more raw and experiential and for you. Enjoy.
This month's reader question is, what facts and tricks exist that can give me a last-minute tweak to my physique? Now, this is going to sound a lot like pre-contest preparation, but of course, photo shoots for male models, there's lots of examples of people who are thinking, oh my God, I have to be peaked out on Friday and it's not happening. What do I do? What about you, Rob? What kinds of things do you remember from when you used to compete that were done in desperation in a last-minute kind of situation?
I mean, manipulation of everything from training to certain styles of training, lengths in the gym, to things that you eat and the fluid you take in can make vast differences on already fine-tuned physique. Of course, I believe, and I think you probably would concur, that the more out of shape you are, the less that holds true. But, just like a fine-tuned car, the more fine-tuned the car is, usually the more dramatic differences you can make with small tweaks and tricks.
That's a great point, that if you're not pretty darn ripped, then not much you do is going to have a big impact. It's almost a prerequisite. You've got to be pretty shredded in order to bring out additional vascularity or things like that. Now, you can make what I would consider a moderate body fat type of person, 8 to 12% fat. You can change a little bit of muscle fullness and things like that. But like you said, what's the purpose of dehydrating chubby, thick-skinned body, right? It's not going to have all that much of an effect.
Yeah, I mean, there's things like, for instance, and again, this is the experience side of things, so I have no science to back any of this up, but I mean, if I found, back when I was, more specifically when I was a bodybuilder, just even now, if I just want to feel a little bit more tighter, all I have to do is drop my carbs for a couple of days, up my protein and my fluid intake, and I find, quite honestly, I have a noticeable difference of feeling of hardness and tightness, and I don't feel as bloated. So, I mean,
yeah. Well, from the research perspective, there's a definite diuretic effect from increasing protein. We've had people on high protein diets in previous studies that I've been involved with, where, boy, their urine output would triple, at least double, from maybe a liter and a half up to 3 liters or more. So you get these guys really peeing, and that's that azotemia, the amino acid load on the kidneys causing lots of, pee.
I find things like cheese and milk, those things just bloat the heck out of me, and they make me feel watery and bloated and bad and slow.
I think that's a good point. I think the dairy product thing, I know a lot of people, and I myself have done it out of paranoia, consider dairy something that bloats you. And I think sometimes there's some confusion there, because when you hear about dairy products bloating you, people mean gastrointestinal bloat, of course, from like a lactose intolerant type of situation. And sometimes that gets confused with skin bloat, subcutaneous water, and puffiness. But that's not to say that it doesn't do a little of both, right?
I firmly believe that it does do a little bit of both. I mean, I've noticed it throughout the years. If I want to be specifically bloated for a workout or so, and sometimes you want to be a little heavier and sloppier for the extra leverage advantage, I suppose, or whatever, that, you eat boatloads of carbs and cheese and all that kind of crap, and it's within a day or two, you're probably going to be 5 pounds heavier.
those kinds of foods, dairy and wheat, can cause allergies, subclinical low-grade allergies. Some people probably more susceptible than others. And there's also issues with wheat products potentially being estrogenic. You can actually find some data that there are weak phytoestrogens, plant-based estrogens, not nearly to the same extent as soy, but in wheat products, and that's why you get a lot of pre-contest bodybuilders avoiding wheat for a month out or more.
I never really thought of that, but
they may be paranoia. Okay, I think it might help to kind of manage this by breaking it down into a couple of different aspects. One would be water and electrolyte balance. That's kind of the primary target for late hour adjustments, but also carbohydrate replenishment. The two kind of go hand in hand, especially because most of us go through life with our glycogen stores at half tank or less. I mean, do you feel like your muscles are bristling with glycogen when you're in the midst of a heavy training cycle, for example?
If I'm really heavily training it, I find it almost impossible to actually feel full. And I usually have to take a week or two off before I can even remotely start feeling full again. I just think it's almost impossible to fill the tanks up fast enough when you're doing heavy resistance training.
Right, because even power training, there's going to be a volume component to it, right, with several sets of triples and stuff like that.
Absolutely, and 3 or 4 weeks of that kind of stuff, and you're just start feeling weak, beat up, and string beanish. And unless you're taking a week or two off and just pounding it back, then I don't think your body can recover from that fast enough.
Well, even just a few sets I know can deplete muscle glycogen by a third. When you start talking about hour-long, 2-hour-long workouts, you start talking about interval-type sports, you can almost completely deplete liver and muscle glycogen in a 1 to 2 hour period. So it's something that really needs addressed, and I would suggest just what you said, the same time frame. It takes 3-4 days to carbohydrate load, and if you don't want to pound lots of extra carbs, take a week off. The simple fact that you're not breaking down all the glycogen, you're not kicking up glycogenolysis to the same extent, repeatedly and chronically, your body will get more full. If you don't believe me, try it. Take a week off from training and don't even eat more carbs. Eat your normal amount of carbs, providing you're getting at least 200 or 300 grams a day, and you will fill out when you get back in the gym.
It's the paranoia, and I mean, after 17, 18 years of training, I'm only starting to realize. And we keep talking about it, Lonnie, when one of us has to take a week or two off because of illness or otherwise, that we come back stronger and fuller. And I think you become so, climatized to feeling always sore that when something doesn't feel beat up or sore or structurally devastated, that somehow you think you're becoming weak. And that's just not the case, and it won't happen. Another thing I found is just water intake. If you really want to tighten up a reasonably lean physique, just drink boatloads of water for a couple of days, and I find that you get much tighter. Your muscles are much harder, that really should go without saying. But I mean, it does work. It does work.
What you're talking about there is kind of fooling your body's ADH release, antidiuretic hormone. You're slamming water, and then you stop it. Some people even stop it and take diuretics, and it could be something as simple as over-counter dandelion root or parabrom, which is actually sold to women for like monthly menstrual bloat types of stuff. And there is and that's where the art comes in and the science starts to fade, because it looks like there's a 24 to 72 hour window before your ADH kicks back in and starts making you retain water. Right. And the process is all reversed as your body tries to, maintain an even keel homeostasis, right?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Other than that, again, it's even training styles. Again, providing you're in a reasonable shape. Even training styles can affect just differences of appearance in a short few days. Training with more volume and a little bit more lighter weights can make a difference versus training heavier with more reps. And I guess that sounds like almost like a contradiction, but doing that also can tighten muscles up a lot.
Well, there's no doubt research that going through a bout of eccentric muscle damage can increase, for example, upper arm girth by 18 millimeters. That's a fair amount. So I think a lot of us, we do go through life with a certain amount of swelling. Now, you don't want to get any kind of eccentric muscle damage when you're trying to carb up, because eccentric trauma decreases the muscle's ability, right, to take up the carbohydrates. So, and you can find research from Doyle, Sherman's group down in Columbus, lots of people validating that. But so the idea, I think, would be to probably do something like hit the high complex carbohydrates. If you're afraid of what's kind of called overspill, then you might want to keep it to 400 grams a day. It could be something like brown potatoes, glucose polymers. There's lots of things that can fit that bill. So you're carbing up on high glycemic index carbohydrates, bananas. That gives potatoes and bananas give you a potassium bonus anyway, because of course a lot of people, while they're slamming the water, they're either adding a little extra salt or salting to taste, and then when they cut a lot of that water intake, or perhaps even before they cut the water intake, they switch over to a high potassium, low sodium diet, because of course sodium can hold that extracellular water.
Again, going back to the training thing, I know we're kind of jumping things here, but I find that moderately heavy, 70 to 80% of one's max on basically big movements for compound for straight sets, like just choosing a weight again that's like 70% of your max and doing several sets of several reps, 6 of 6 or something like that, where you're going to positive failure but not negative failure. I find that over a few days you actually can build a lot more bulbousness in the muscle, and I don't know if that's inflammation or just retention of water fluids or whatever that is, but I have noticed that could give a temporary girth increase at least.
And that'd be something that could be done in weak body parts or even all body parts if you wanted to kind of go through it systematically. I think you're running the risk, though, of depleting your glycogen store, so it's a matter of creating a little bit of muscle inflammation and somehow maintaining your carbohydrate load in that case.
Yeah, but again, you have to remember we're discussing things that tweak the physique, the appearance of the physique, temporarily. I mean, none of these things are, going to hold for any length of time.
No, these aren't long-term solutions. We're talking about for a Saturday photo shoot or a Saturday contest, maybe upping the carbs Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I actually prefer to cut the carbs back a bit on Friday just in case, because I'm really paranoid. Of course, you can't just say, glycogen synthetic rates. Skeletal muscle can load carbohydrate at glucose at this rate and turn it into glycogen. That might be great for a long-distance runner, but then you're dealing. Long-distance runners don't have to worry about overspill and losing that slight edge of muscular cosmetic hardness.
Exactly, which is why everybody should be a powerlifter.
All right, so there's another installment of experiments versus experience. Obviously, this is for physique-interested people, bodybuilding athletes, fitness and figure and bikini and all that sort of thing. A lot of these things were speculation. Of course they were. Remember, this is old. This is from years ago. But a lot of these things are interesting things that you might explore. In any case, if you like this kind of content, please leave a comment on our YouTube channel. It's Lawnman07. It's just our little backup. And also an iTunes review if you can. Trying to follow the data in this season 1. We've only got 100 episodes to deal with, and we're almost done. And we just want to kind of follow the data and see what people are interested in. Is it the sports nutrition? What is it that you're interested in? Nutrition just touches so many parts of our lives. Everybody eats, as I like to say. So that's going to be it for this time, and we'll see you later.
The NutritionRadio.org podcast is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, check with your physician, nutritionist, or qualified exercise physiologist in order to make the progress that you need.